The boardroom felt colder than usual that morning. I sat at the far end of the long glass table, watching my late husband's children walk in like they owned the place. Maybe they thought they did. Before we proceed, thank you for watching Mama's Voice. Please subscribe and tell us where you are watching from in the comment section. Marcus was the first to arrive. Tall, sharp suit, expensive watch catching the morning light. He barely looked at me as he took his seat at the head of the table. The seat that used to be Richard's. My husband had been gone for exactly 2 weeks, and already Marcus was sitting in his chair like he had been waiting his whole life for this moment. His sister Victoria came next. Designer handbag, heels that clicked against the marble floor with purpose. She gave me a tight smile that did not reach her eyes. The kind of smile you give to someone you are about to destroy. Behind them came their lawyer, a man named Gerald with silver hair and a briefcase that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He set up his papers with careful precision, organizing them like weapons before a battle. I was alone. No lawyer. No advisor. Just me and a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. Richard and I had been married for 18 years. Not as long as his first marriage, the one that gave him Marcus and Victoria, but long enough to build a life. Long enough to think I mattered. Long enough to be wrong. The funeral had been beautiful. Victoria had made sure of that. White roses everywhere, a string quartet, catered reception at the country club. She had stood beside me at the graveside, her hand on my shoulder, whispering about how we would get through this together. How family sticks together in hard times. I should have known better. Marcus cleared his throat, pulling my attention back to the present. Thank you for coming, Margaret. I know this is difficult. My name is not Margaret. It is Maggie. But Marcus had never bothered to get it right, and I had stopped correcting him years ago. We have some important matters to discuss, he continued. Estate matters that cannot wait. I nodded, wrapping my hands around my cold coffee cup. The warmth was gone, but I needed something to hold on to. Victoria opened her leather portfolio, pulling out a stack of papers. Dad was very clear about his wishes. He wanted to make sure the family business stayed in the family. The real family. The real family. Not me, apparently. Not the woman who had sat by Richard's hospital bed for 3 months, watching him fade away. Not the woman who had held his hand through chemotherapy, radiation, and every horrible treatment the doctors could think of. Not the woman who had whispered, "I love you," into his ear right before he took his last breath. Gerald, the lawyer, took over. The will is quite straightforward. The company goes to Marcus and Victoria jointly. The properties, including the main residence, the beach house, and the mountain cabin, all transfer to them as well. The investment portfolio will be split between them. I sat very still, waiting for him to mention my name. Waiting to hear what provision Richard had made for his wife of 18 years. As for you, Mrs. Whitaker, Gerald continued, there is a modest life insurance policy. $50,000. And of course you have 30 days to vacate the main residence so Marcus and Victoria can begin managing the property. $50,000. And 30 days to leave my home. The coffee cup slipped from my fingers, hitting the table with a dull thud. Coffee spread across the glass surface, dark and accusing. Victoria jumped up, grabbing napkins from the sidebar. "Oh, Maggie, let me help you." But her eyes were not concerned. They were triumphant. "I understand this is shocking," Gerald said, his voice professionally sympathetic. "But these were your husband's wishes. Everything is legal and properly documented. Did Richard really write this?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Weaker." Marcus leaned back in his chair, that expensive watch glinting. Dad was very clear about protecting family assets. The business has been in our family for 3 generations. He wanted to ensure it stayed that way. "I am family," I said quietly. Victoria sat back down, arranging her papers with careful precision. "You know what Marcus means. Blood family. Dad built this company with our mother. It makes sense that it should stay with us. Richard's first wife had died 20 years ago. Cancer, just like Richard. I had never met her, but I had lived in her shadow every day of my marriage. Her portrait still hung in the main house. Her china still sat in the dining room cabinet. Her memory haunted every corner of the life Richard and I had tried to build together. "There is one more thing," Gerald said, pulling out another document. "The medical expenses from Mr. Whittaker's final illness. The insurance covered most of it, but there remains an outstanding balance of approximately $90,000. As his spouse, you are responsible for that debt." The room spun slightly. $90,000. On top of losing everything. "But the estate," I began. "Surely the estate can cover medical expenses." "The estate assets are already allocated," Gerald interrupted smoothly. "The debt falls to you as the surviving spouse who authorized the treatments. I authorized those treatments because I was trying to save my husband's life. Because I loved him. Because I thought we were partners building a future together." Marcus stood up, buttoning his suit jacket. "Look, Margaret, we understand this is difficult. But Dad made his choices. We are just following his wishes. The 30 days should give you plenty of time to find a place. Something smaller, more manageable for a woman in your situation. A woman in my situation. 60 years old. $50,000 to my name. $90,000 in debt. No career because I had given up my teaching job to support Richard's business. No family because my parents were gone and Richard's children had never accepted me." I looked at Victoria. We had gone shopping together last month. She had helped me pick out the dress I wore to Richard's funeral. We had laughed over lunch, talked about maybe taking a trip together once I was ready. "Maybe Italy," she had said. "You have always wanted to see Venice." Had that all been fake? Had she known, even then, what was coming? Victoria met my eyes and looked away quickly. There was something there, guilt maybe, but not enough to change anything. "Is there anything else?" I asked, proud that my voice stayed steady. "Just the paperwork," Gerald said, pushing a folder across the table. "We need your signature on a few documents. Acknowledgement of the will terms, agreement to vacate the property, acceptance of financial responsibility for the medical debts." I stared at the folder without touching it. "What if I do not sign?" "Then we pursue this through the courts," Marcus said. "Which will be expensive and time-consuming for everyone. Dad's will is ironclad. You will lose, and you will have legal fees on top of everything else. I need time to think. Talk to my own lawyer." "Course," Gerald said smoothly. "You have until Monday. 3 days. But I should warn you that delaying will not change the outcome. It will only make things more difficult for everyone." They all stood up then, gathering their papers and their briefcases and their certainty that they had won. "I am sorry," Victoria said as she passed my chair. "I really am. But this is what Dad wanted. We have to respect that." After they left, I sat alone in that boardroom for a long time. The coffee stain on the table had started to dry, leaving a brown mark that looked like a wound. 3 days to decide whether to fight or surrender. 3 days to figure out how Richard could have done this to me. 3 days to understand how 18 years of marriage could be worth so little. The building was silent around me. Richard's company. The business he had built with his first wife, expanded during our marriage, and now left entirely to children who had never worked there. Marcus had his own law practice in Boston. Victoria was a real estate agent in Florida. Neither of them had shown any interest in the company while Richard was alive. But now they owned it. All of it. I finally stood up, my legs shaky under me. I needed to get out of this building, away from the ghosts of Richard's decisions and the cold efficiency of his children's greed. As I walked through the empty office, I passed Richard's private office. The door was open. Someone, probably Marcus, had already started clearing things out. Boxes sat on the floor, half filled with books and files and the accumulated evidence of my husband's life. On the desk, still in its frame, was the photograph Richard had kept there for years. Not a picture of Marcus or Victoria. Not even a picture of his first wife. It was a photo of Richard and me on our wedding day. Both of us laughing, caught in a moment of pure joy that felt like it had happened to different people in a different lifetime. I picked up the frame, holding it close. Why had Richard kept this photo if he planned to leave me with nothing? Why had he told me so many times that I would be taken care of? That I never had to worry about the future? Had he lied? Or had something else happened? I tucked the photo frame into my purse and left the building for what I knew would be the last time. The house felt different when I got home. Bigger. Emptier. Like it already knew it was not mine anymore. I had lived here for 16 years. Richard and I had bought it together early in our marriage. He had carried me over the threshold, laughing as he tried not to trip on the front steps. We had painted the bedroom together, planted the garden together, hosted Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas parties and summer barbecues in the backyard. This was my home. How could it suddenly belong to Marcus and Victoria? I walked through the rooms slowly, touching things. The couch Richard and I had picked out after weeks of searching for exactly the right shade of blue. The kitchen table where we had eaten breakfast together every morning for 18 years. The bookshelf we had built one rainy weekend, arguing good-naturedly about whether the shelves were level. In the bedroom, I opened the closet and stared at Richard's clothes. Still hanging exactly where he had left them. His favorite sweater, the one I had given him for his birthday 3 years ago. His suits, carefully organized by color. His shoes lined up neatly on the floor. I could not donate these yet. Could not bear to pack them up and send them away like they had never mattered. Like he had never mattered. My phone rang, shattering the silence. I did not recognize the number. Hello. Mrs. Whitaker. This is David Chen from First National Bank. I am calling about your husband's accounts. My stomach dropped. What about them? Well, we need to discuss the outstanding loans. With Mr. Whitaker's passing, the accounts have been frozen pending estate settlement. But there are several loans that require immediate attention. What loans? Mr. Chen paused. You were not aware of the loans against the property. Against the business assets. No, I whispered. Tell me. Over the next 10 minutes, David Chan explained something that made my head spin. Richard had taken out massive loans in the last 6 months of his life. Loans against the house. Loans against the business. Loans against properties I did not even know he owned. The total debt was staggering. Nearly $3 million. But where did the money go? Yes. That information is not available to me, Mrs. Whitaker. But the loans exist, and they will need to be addressed during the estate settlement. After I hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to make sense of what I had just learned. $3 million in debt. Taken out in the months before Richard died. While he was sick. While he was supposedly planning his estate and making sure his family was taken care of. Something was very wrong. I needed help, and I knew exactly where to find it. Robert Walsh had been Richard's best friend since college. They had started the company together, though Robert had sold his shares years ago to start his own consulting firm. He had been at the funeral, quiet and sad, telling me to call if I needed anything. It was time to make that call. Robert agreed to meet me the next morning at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory, away from Richard's company and away from my house that would not be my house much longer. He looked older than I remembered from the funeral. Tired. When I sat down across from him, he studied my face with concern. You look terrible, Maggie. What happened? I told him everything. The meeting in the boardroom. The will. 30 days to vacate. The $50,000. The medical debt. And finally, the mysterious loans that David Chan had told me about. Robert listened without interrupting. His coffee growing cold in front of him. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. Richard did not write that will. What? I mean, he wrote a will. But not that one. 6 months before he died, Richard came to me upset. He said he had discovered something about Marcus and Victoria. Something bad. He was planning to change his will completely. My heart started pounding. What did he discover? Robert leaned forward, lowering his voice. Marcus was embezzling from the company. Richard found discrepancies in the accounts, money disappearing over the course of years. When he confronted Marcus, Marcus claimed it was just accounting errors. But Richard did not believe him. And Victoria. She was in on it. Using her real estate connections to help Marcus hide assets, move money through property deals that looked legitimate but were not. Richard estimated they had stolen close to $2 million over 10 years. $2 million. Close to the amount Richard had borrowed in those final months. Robert, I said slowly, what if Richard took out those loans to cover what Marcus and Victoria stole? To keep the company solvent while he figured out what to do. That is exactly what I think happened. Robert pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. Richard sent me an email 2 weeks before he died. Here. He turned the phone toward me. The email was short but devastating. Robert, I have made new arrangements. Everything is documented. If something happens to me, make sure Maggie knows to check the safe deposit box. Box 247 at First National. She has a key, even if she does not know it yet. Do not let the kids get away with this. Do you know what he meant? About me having a key. I shook my head, but even as I did, a memory stirred. Richard's wallet. The one the hospital had given me with his personal effects. I had not gone through it carefully, too overwhelmed by grief to look at anything closely. I need to go home, I said, standing up so quickly I almost knocked over my coffee. Right now. Robert stood with me. I'm coming with you. The wallet was in Richard's nightstand drawer, where I had placed it the day I brought it home from the hospital. I had not been able to look at it since. Had not been able to face sorting through the everyday items of his life. Now I dumped it out on the bed. Driver's license, credit cards, insurance card, receipts. And there, tucked into a small pocket I had not noticed, a tiny key with a number stamped on it. 247. We drove to the bank together, Robert following me in his car. The whole way there my mind raced with possibilities. What had Richard left in that safe deposit box? Evidence of Marcus and Victoria's theft. A different will. Instructions for what I should do next. The bank manager remembered me from when Richard and I had set up our accounts years ago. She expressed sympathy about Richard's death, then led us down to the vault. The safe deposit box was larger than I expected. When I opened it, my hands were shaking so badly that Robert had to help me lift the lid. Inside were documents, so many documents, and a letter on top addressed to me in Richard's handwriting. My dearest Maggie, it began. If you are reading this, then I am gone and you have found your way here. I am sorry for the confusion and pain you must be going through. Let me explain everything. The letter was 5 pages long. In it, Richard explained what he had discovered about Marcus and Victoria. How they had been stealing from the company for years. How he had confronted them and they had promised to pay it back. How he had given them a chance to make things right. But they did not make things right. Instead, they started pressuring him to sign over more control of the company. To change his will. To cut me out of his legacy. When Richard refused, things got worse. Became sick, Richard wrote. And in my illness, I could not fight them as hard as I should have. They brought me papers to sign, told me they were routine business documents. I signed some of them because I was too weak to read them carefully. I fear some of those documents may have been used against my wishes. I took out loans to cover what they stole and to leave you protected. I created new accounts they do not know about. I documented everything. The evidence is all here in this box. Bank statements showing the theft. Emails proving they knew what they were doing. Recorded conversations where they discussed how to manipulate my estate. My hands trembled as I read on. I have created a new will with a different attorney, someone Marcus and Victoria do not know. That will leaves everything to you. The real everything, not the debt-laden shell they think they are inheriting. The properties they believe they own are underwater with debt, but the liquid assets I have protected for you total nearly $4 million. Hidden in accounts they cannot access. $4 million. Richard had not abandoned me. He had protected me. But Maggie, Richard's letter continued, I need you to do something difficult. I need you to let them think they won. Let them take the properties. Let them think they got everything. Because when they discover those properties are worthless, when they realize the debt they have inherited, when their theft is exposed, They will face consequences that my fighting them directly never could have achieved. The will they showed you is fake. A document they had created using forged signatures and help from a corrupt lawyer. They think I never changed my real will. They are wrong. At the bottom of the letter was a phone number. Contact Jonathan Price. He has my real will and all the legal documents you need. Trust him. Trust yourself. And know that I loved you until my very last breath. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I made sure you would be taken care of. Do not let them bully you. You are stronger than you know. All my love, Richard. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Robert read over my shoulder, his hand on my back for support. He really did love you, Robert said quietly. Everything he did in those last months was to protect you and make sure Marcus and Victoria paid for what they had done. Under the letter were the documents Richard had mentioned. Bank statements showing systematic withdrawals that matched Marcus's spending patterns. Emails between Marcus and Victoria discussing how to hide the money they had stolen. Loan documents showing how Richard had tried to keep the company afloat while dealing with their theft. And at the very bottom, a copy of a real will, dated 1 month before Richard died. Witnessed and notarized. Leaving everything to me with detailed instructions for exposing Marcus and Victoria's crimes. What are you going to do? Robert asked. I thought about Marcus sitting in Richard's chair, so confident and arrogant. I thought about Victoria's fake sympathy and her talk of family loyalty. I thought about 18 years of being treated like an outsider in my own marriage. I'm going to do exactly what Richard asked, I said. I'm going to let them think they won. The next morning I called Jonathan Price, the attorney whose number Richard had given me. His office was in a modest building far from the downtown area where Richard's company was located. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Mrs. Whitaker, he said as I sat down in his office. I have been expecting your call. Your husband left very specific instructions for me. He pulled out a file that was easily 3 inches thick. This contains everything you need to know about your true financial situation and about what your stepchildren have been doing. Over the next 2 hours, Jonathan walked me through it all. The fake will Marcus and Victoria were using. The evidence of their theft. The money Richard had hidden away in accounts only I could access. The debt-laden properties they thought they were inheriting. The house they want so badly. Jonathan said. It has a mortgage of $800,000 against it. Richard took out that loan 6 months ago and put the money in a protected account for you. The beach house has a $500,000 lien. The mountain cabin is leveraged to the maximum. They think they are inheriting $2 million in real estate. In reality, they are inheriting $1.5 million in debt. And the company, also heavily leveraged. Richard borrowed against it to cover their theft and keep it operating. They will inherit a business that owes more than it is worth. Between the company debt and the property debt, they are walking into a financial disaster. I should have felt guilty, but I did not. All I felt was a cold sense of satisfaction. What about exposing their theft? Yes. That is up to you, Jonathan said. We have enough evidence to pursue criminal charges. Embezzlement, fraud, possibly elder abuse given that some of the theft occurred while Richard was sick. They could go to prison. Thought about that. Prison seemed almost too easy. Too clean. They would serve their time and get out with their lives ahead of them. What if we do not pursue charges right away? What if we let them discover the debt on their own first? Jonathan smiled slowly. That would be poetic. Watch them celebrate their inheritance, start making plans, maybe even start spending money they do not have. Then hit them with the reality of the debt. And once they are completely buried, expose the theft so they cannot claim the debt as justification for bankruptcy. How long do we have to decide about the criminal charges? The statute of limitations gives us several years. We can wait and see how this plays out. Then that is what I want to do, I said. Let them have their moment of triumph. Let them feel like they won. And then show them exactly what my husband thought of their betrayal. Jonathan pulled out a stack of papers. Then the first thing we need to do is have you sign some documents. Acknowledgement of the true will. access to the protected accounts, and authorization for me to handle any legal matters that arise. As I signed each paper, I felt something shifting inside me. For weeks I had felt powerless, grieving, lost. Now I felt something different. Purpose, determination, and yes, anger. The kind of clean, focused anger that comes from being wronged and finally having the tools to make it right. "There is one more thing," Jonathan said. "Your husband left you a video message. He recorded it 3 weeks before he died. Would you like to see it?" My hands started shaking again. "Please." Jonathan set up his laptop on the desk between us. When he hit play, Richard's face filled the screen. He looked tired and thin, the cancer eating away at him. But his eyes were clear and focused. "Hi, sweetheart," he said, and my breath caught in my throat. It had been so long since I heard his voice. "If you are watching this, then I am gone and you have found Jonathan. I am glad. Means you are safe and you know the truth." The video was 10 minutes long. In it, Richard explained everything he had done to protect me. How he had discovered Marcus and Victoria's theft. How he had tried to give them a chance to make it right and they had betrayed him again. How he had spent his final months setting up this elaborate trap. "I could not fight them while I was alive," Richard said on the screen. "I was too sick, too weak. They took advantage of that. But in death, I can make sure they pay for what they did. Not just to me but to you. To our marriage. To the trust one placed in them as my children." He paused, coughing, and I had to fight the urge to reach out to the screen to help him. "Maggie, you are the strongest person I know. Stronger than me. Stronger than my children will ever be. I know this is hard. I know you probably feel lost and scared right now. But you are not alone. I made sure of that. And I need you to promise me something." He leaned closer to the camera. "Do not let them make you feel small. Do not let them convince you that you do not deserve what I left you. You deserve every penny, every property, every single thing. You earned it by loving me when I was not easy to love. By standing by me through all of this. By being the partner I needed but never fully appreciated until it was almost too late." Tears streamed down my face. "Give them the debt," Richard continued. "Let them choke on their own greed. And then live the life you always deserved. Travel. Paint. Take those art classes you always talked about. Be happy, Maggie. That is my final gift to you. The freedom to be happy without having to take care of anyone but yourself." The video ended with Richard smiling, the same smile from our wedding photo. Jonathan closed the laptop gently. "Are you all right?" he asked. I wiped my eyes and nodded. "I am better than all right. I am ready." The meeting with Marcus and Victoria was scheduled for Monday at their lawyer's office. I arrived 10 minutes early, carrying a simple folder with the documents I needed to sign. Gerald greeted me with professional courtesy. "Mrs. Whitaker, thank you for coming. I trust you had time to review the documents." I did. "And do you have any questions before we proceed?" "Just one," I said. "Once I sign these papers, I have no further claim to any of my husband's estate." "That is correct. You would be accepting the terms as outlined. The $50,000 life insurance payout and responsibility for the medical debts in exchange for relinquishing all other claims." "Perfect," I said, pulling out a pen. Marcus and Victoria were not there yet. Gerald explained they would arrive once the paperwork was complete. They did not want to make this more difficult for me than it needed to be. How considerate. I signed each paper slowly, reading every word even though I knew Jonathan had already reviewed everything. This was theater now. A performance for Gerald, who had no idea he was helping facilitate his client's destruction. When I finished, Gerald collected the papers with satisfaction. "This will be filed with the court immediately. The estate can now move forward with distribution." "How long before Marcus and Victoria take possession of the properties?" "The deed transfers can happen within 2 weeks. They are quite eager to begin managing the assets." "I bet they are," I thought. Out loud I said I hope they enjoy them. Something in my tone made Gerald look up sharply. But my expression was neutral, polite. The expression of a woman who had been beaten down and had accepted her fate. "Is there anything else you need from me?" he asked. No, that is everything. Your copy of the paperwork will be mailed to you. And Mrs. Whittaker, I'm sorry for your loss. I know this is not the outcome you hoped for. I stood gathering my purse. Life rarely gives us the outcome we hope for, Mr. Gerald. We just have to make the best of what we get. As I walked out of his office, I passed Marcus and Victoria in the hallway. They were dressed for celebration, expensive clothes and bright smiles. Margaret, Victoria said, stepping forward like she wanted to hug me. I heard you sign the papers. That took a lot of courage. I stepped back before she could touch me. It is Maggie. And it did not take courage. Took acceptance. Marcus cleared his throat. We want you to know that we will take good care of Dad's properties. His legacy. His legacy, I repeated. I'm sure you will both get exactly what you deserve. Something in my words made Victoria frown slightly. But then her lawyer called them into his office and the moment passed. They disappeared through the door, already discussing their plans for their inheritance. I walked out of that building feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The next 2 weeks passed slowly. I started packing up the house, sorting through 18 years of accumulated life. Some things I donated, some things I threw away. But some things, the important things, I carefully boxed up and moved to a storage unit. Jonathan called me regularly with updates. The estate was moving through the system exactly as planned. Marcus and Victoria had already started making changes at Richard's company, bringing in their own people, making plans for expansion. They had even taken out additional loans against the properties to fund their grand visions. They are digging themselves deeper, Jonathan said with something like admiration in his voice. Your husband knew them well. He knew they would not just accept what they inherited. They would try to leverage it into something bigger. When does reality hit them? The first mortgage payment on the house is due in 1 week. That is when they will discover exactly how much Richard borrowed against it. The company loans come due 2 weeks after that. And the evidence of their theft. We wait until they are completely drowning in debt. Then we release it to the authorities. That way they cannot claim the debt as an extenuating circumstance or try to declare bankruptcy to escape the consequences. I moved into a small apartment near the university. It was temporary, just a place to stay while I figured out my next steps. The apartment was tiny compared to the house I had shared with Richard, but it felt like mine in a way that house never had. Robert came by to help me unpack. He brought pizza and beer and helped me assemble furniture from the big Swedish store that came in boxes with confusing instructions. You look different, he said as we struggled with a bookshelf. Lighter somehow. Feel different. For the first time in years, maybe in my whole life, I am making decisions just for me. No one else to consider. No one else's needs to put first. Just me. What are you going to do with all that money? I'd been thinking about that a lot. The $4 million Richard had left me was more than I could spend in several lifetimes, even if I lived extravagantly. I want to do something meaningful with it. Maybe start a foundation. Help other women who find themselves in situations like mine, with no resources and no options. Richard would like that, Robert said. Think he would. The bookshelf finally came together, mostly level, and we collapsed on my new couch with our beers. Have you heard from Marcus or Victoria? Robert asked. Not a word. I am sure they are busy celebrating their inheritance. It will not last much longer. He was right. 3 days later, Jonathan called me with barely contained excitement in his voice. It is happening. Marcus called his bank this morning about getting an additional loan against the house. That is when he discovered the existing mortgage. According to my source at the bank, he went pale and had to sit down. And Victoria? She found out about the beach house lien this afternoon when she tried to list it for sale. She actually screamed at her real estate agent, claiming there must be some mistake. I felt a twinge of something. Not quite satisfaction, not quite guilt. Something in between. Have they contacted you? Not yet. But they will. They still think the company is worth something. They do not know about the business loans yet. When will they find out about those? The quarterly reports go out tomorrow. That is when the full picture becomes clear. I slept poorly that night, My dreams filled with images of Marcus and Victoria discovering the trap Richard had laid for them. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for them. They were still Richard's children, still people he had loved despite everything. But then I remembered the boardroom. The cold efficiency with which they had tried to discard me. The $50,000 in 30 days, that was all they thought 18 years of my life was worth. And the sympathy faded. The call came the next afternoon. Victoria, her voice shaking with rage or tears or both. "What did you do?" "I'm sorry, I do not understand," I said calmly. "The house, the properties, they are all mortgaged. The company is drowning in debt. Dad left us nothing but bills." "What did you do?" "I did not do anything, Victoria. I signed the papers your lawyer gave me. I accepted my $50,000 and walked away." "You knew. You knew about all of this and you did not tell us." "I did not know until after I signed the papers. But even if I had known, why would I tell you? You made it very clear that I was not part of the family." Silence on the other end of the line. "Then we need to talk. All of us. You, me, Marcus. We need to figure out how to fix this." "There is nothing to fix. You inherited exactly what your father wanted you to have. That is not possible. Dad would not have done this to us. Would he not? After what you did to him." Another silence, longer this time. "What are you talking about?" "I know about the embezzlement, Victoria. A theft. All of it. Richard knew too. That is why he did what he did." I heard her breath catch. We were going to pay it back. It was temporary. $2 million over 10 years was not temporary. It was systematic theft. And when Richard got sick, instead of coming clean and making it right, you tried to manipulate him into giving you even more. The sound of crying now, ugly and desperate. "We did not mean for things to go this far. We just needed help with some investments that went bad. And then it spiraled. So you stole from your dying father. We thought there was more. We thought the company had more assets. We did not know about the loans. Richard took out those loans to cover what you stole. To keep the company running while dealing with his illness and your betrayal." More crying. "Then what about you? How much did you get?" "That is none of your concern. I got what Richard wanted me to have. This is not over, Maggie. We can fight this. Challenge the will. Prove Dad was not in his right mind when he made these decisions. You could try that. But then Jonathan Price would release all the evidence Richard collected about your crimes. Bank records, emails, recorded conversations. You would end up in prison instead of just broke." I hung up before she could respond. Marcus called an hour later. His approach was different. No tears. No emotion. Just cold calculation. "We need to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" "You got money from somewhere. Dad must have had accounts we did not know about. You help us with the debt, and we will not pursue legal action over the will." I almost laughed. "You are threatening to sue me. With what money? You are broke, Marcus. Worse than broke. You are buried in debt. We will find a way. And when we do, we will prove you manipulated Dad. Took advantage of a sick old man. Your father was not a sick old man. He was a brilliant businessman who knew exactly what he was doing. He set this trap for you deliberately because of what you did to him. We will see what a judge thinks. Go ahead. Take me to court. I welcome it. Because the moment you file, Jonathan Price will release every piece of evidence your father collected. The world will know what you did. Your clients will know. Your friends will know. Everyone will know that you stole from your dying father." The line went dead. I sat there staring at my phone, my heart pounding. It was done. They knew. And there was nothing they could do about it. The next few weeks were a nightmare for Marcus and Victoria, and I watched it unfold from the safety of my small apartment. Robert kept me updated. His sources at the company feeding him information about the chaos. Marcus tried to sell the properties but discovered that selling underwater assets was nearly impossible. No buyer wanted to take on debt that exceeded the property value. The beach house went into foreclosure first. Then the mountain cabin. The main house, the one where I had lived for 16 years, lasted a little longer but eventually followed the same path. The company struggled under the weight of its debt and the loss of Richard's leadership. Marcus tried to run it, but he had no experience in operations. Within 2 months, major clients started leaving. Within 3 months, the company was hemorrhaging money. Victoria lost her real estate license when angry clients filed complaints about her involvement in Marcus's schemes. The investigation into her business practices revealed a pattern of deception and manipulation that went far beyond helping her brother hide stolen money. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt exhausted. Like I had spent all my energy on revenge and had nothing left for anything else. Robert found me one evening sitting in the dark in my apartment, staring out the window at nothing. "You need to stop following their downfall," he said gently. "You need to start living your life." I do not know how anymore. For 18 years I was Richard's wife. Then I was the grieving widow. Then I was the woman seeking justice. Who am I supposed to be now? Whoever you want to be. That is the point of all of this, Maggie. Richard gave you the freedom to discover who you are without him. Without anyone defining you. I turned to look at him. How do I even start? Small steps. What did you want to do before you met Richard? Before you gave up teaching to support his business? I thought back to my 20s, when I was young and full of dreams. I wanted to write stories, novels. I wanted to travel and collect experiences and turn them into words that meant something. Then start there. But travel. You have the money and the time and no responsibilities to anyone but yourself. Sounds so simple when you say it like that. It is simple. It is just not easy. The next day I bought a laptop. Good one. The kind I had always wanted but never justified spending money on. And I started writing. First, the words came slowly. Painful. Like pulling out splinters that had been buried under my skin for years. I wrote about Richard. About our marriage. About the last terrible months of his life and the revelation of his children's betrayal. But gradually the writing shifted. I started creating characters who were not me, situations that had never happened. Fiction began flowing from some deep well inside me that I had forgotten existed. I enrolled in a writing workshop at the university. The first class was terrifying. I was the oldest person there by at least 20 years. The other students were young and confident, sharing their work like it was easy. But the teacher, a woman named Diana with silver hair and kind eyes, pulled me aside after the first session. "Your voice is distinctive," she said. Lived in. Do not try to sound like the young writers. Write from where you are now, not where you wish you were. I took her advice. And slowly, week by week, my writing got stronger. The stories got better. I found my voice. 6 months after signing away my inheritance in Gerald's office, Jonathan called with news. The statute of limitations is running out on some of the earlier theft. If we are going to pursue criminal charges, we need to decide soon. Thought about it. Marcus had lost everything. The properties were gone. His law practice was struggling under the weight of scandal. Victoria was working as a waitress, the only job she could get after losing her license. They had been punished. Thoroughly. Publicly. They would spend years climbing out of the hole Richard had dug for them. What happens if we do not file charges? Nothing. They live with the consequences of their actions, but they do not go to prison. And if we do file, with the evidence we have, conviction is almost certain. They are looking at 5 to 10 years each. I sat with that for a long moment. 5 to 10 years. Of their lives. Let it go, I finally said. Richard got his revenge. They lost everything that mattered to them. Prison feels like more than they deserve at this point. Are you sure? Jonathan asked. This is your decision. Richard left it up to you. I'm sure. Let them rebuild their lives. Let them live with what they did. That feels more just than locking them away. After I hung up, I felt something release inside me. For months, I had been carrying anger like a stone in my chest. Now it was gone, replaced by something lighter. Not forgiveness exactly, but acceptance. 1 year after Richard's death, I sold my first story. It was a short piece about a woman discovering her own strength after loss. A small literary magazine bought it for $200, and I cried when I got the acceptance email. $200 meant nothing compared to the millions sitting in my bank account. But it meant everything because I had earned it. With my words. With my work. Robert took me out to celebrate. We went to an expensive restaurant, the kind Richard would have loved, and ordered champagne. To new beginnings, Robert said, raising his glass. To old friends, I replied. We clinked glasses and drank, and for the first time in a very long time I felt happy. Not the careful, managed happiness of my marriage. Not the grim satisfaction of watching my enemies fall. Just simple, genuine happiness. The foundation I had dreamed about became real 18 months after Richard's death. I called it the Second Chances Foundation, and its mission was simple. Helping women over 50 who found themselves suddenly alone and without resources. Women who had given up careers for marriage. Women who had never worked outside the home. Women who thought they were secure until death or divorce left them with nothing. I hired a small staff, found office space, and started spreading the word. The response was overwhelming. So many women needed help. So many stories like mine or worse. We provided legal assistance, financial counseling, job training, emergency housing when necessary. And most importantly, we provided community. A place where women could talk about their fears and their anger and their grief without judgment. Victoria showed up at my office 2 years after Richard's death. My assistant told me there was someone to see me, and when I walked into the waiting room, there she was. She looked different. Older. Thinner. Her expensive clothes were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a sweater that had seen better days. No designer handbag. No jewelry except for a simple watch. Can we talk? She asked. Please. Almost said no. Almost had my assistant show her out. But something in her face stopped me. She looked defeated, broken. And despite everything she had done, I found I could not turn her away. We sat in my office, an awkward silence stretching between us. I am not here to ask for money, she finally said. Or to threaten you. I just wanted to apologize. For everything. I did not respond. I wanted to hear what she had to say. Marcus and I were wrong. About everything. We thought Dad owed us. That the company was our birthright. That you were just a temporary fixture who did not really matter. She looked down at her hands. Her nails were unpainted, ragged. Working hands now. We convinced ourselves that taking money from the company was not really stealing. That Dad had more than enough. That we would pay it back someday. But the truth is, we were just greedy. And selfish. And when Dad got sick, instead of stepping up and being there for him, we saw it as an opportunity. I know, I said quietly. I lost everything, Maggie. My license, my marriage, my house. Marcus is living in a studio apartment working as a paralegal. Everything Dad built, everything he wanted to pass on to us, we destroyed it. You destroyed it, I agreed. Not me. Not Richard. No. She wiped her eyes. No. And I am not asking you to forgive me. I do not deserve forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. What we did to you. What we did to Dad. I understand and I am sorry. We sat in silence for another moment. What are you doing now? Yes. Working at a hotel. Front desk. It is honest work. I am trying to rebuild some kind of life. That is good. Honest work is good. She stood to leave, then hesitated. One more thing. Marcus wanted me to tell you that he is sorry too. He is too proud to come himself, but he wanted you to know. After she left, I sat in my office for a long time, thinking about forgiveness and justice and whether the two could ever really coexist. Richard had gotten his revenge. Marcus and Victoria had lost everything. But in the end, was anyone really better off? They were broken. I was alone. Richard was dead. All that money, all that planning, all that anger, and what had it accomplished? Then I looked around my office. At the photos on the walls of women we had helped. At the thank you cards pinned to my bulletin board. At the stack of grant applications from women seeking to rebuild their lives. This is what it accomplished, I realized. Not the revenge. Not the punishment. But this. The foundation. The help. The community. The second chances. Richard's betrayal and his elaborate trap had given me the resources to do something meaningful. And Marcus and Victoria's fall had taught them lessons they could never have learned any other way. Maybe that was justice. Not the clean, satisfying kind from movies, but the messy, complicated, real-world kind where everyone loses something and hopefully learns something. 3 years after Richard's death, I published my first novel. It was not a bestseller. Did not win awards. But it was mine and it was real, and people read it and told me it moved them. The story was about a woman who loses her husband and discovers that the life she thought she had was not real. That the people she thought were family were strangers. And about how she builds something new from the ashes of everything she lost. Sound familiar? Robert asked when I gave him a copy. Write what you know, I said with a smile. Richard would be proud. Think he would. Not of the revenge. That was his plan, not mine. But of this. Of me finding my voice. My purpose. My life. I still think about Richard sometimes. Usually late at night when the house is quiet and I am alone with my thoughts. I think about the good years we had together. The laughter and the love and the quiet moments of companionship that made marriage feel like home. But I also think about the secrets he kept from me. The money he hid. The elaborate plan he created without my input or consent. And I wonder if he really trusted me or if he just wanted to control things from beyond the grave. The truth is probably somewhere in between. He loved me. And he protected me. But he also manipulated me, even in death, into playing a role in his revenge scheme. I have made my peace with that. With him. With all of it. The foundation continues to grow. We help hundreds of women every year now. Some of them remind me of who I was 3 years ago. Plus, scared. Convinced their lives were over. I tell them what I wish someone had told me. Your life is not over. It is just beginning. And you get to decide what comes next. Not your husband. Not your children. Not society's expectations or other people's plans for you. Just you. Some of them believe me. Some of them do not. But I keep saying it because it is true. I am 63 years old. I have more money than I will ever spend. I have work that matters. I have friends who actually care about me. I have a voice that people want to hear. I am not the woman I was when Richard was alive. That woman died with him. In her place is someone stronger. Someone who knows her own worth. Someone who cannot be discarded or dismissed or made to feel small. Marcus and Victoria gave me a gift, though they never meant to. They showed me exactly what I was worth to them. $50,000 in 30 days. And in doing so, they freed me to discover what I was worth to myself. Priceless. The boardroom where it all started is part of someone else's company now. Richard's business was sold off piece by piece to pay the debts. I drive past the building sometimes and remember how scared I felt that morning when Marcus and Victoria laid out their plans for my future. How small they made me feel. How powerless. I am not powerless anymore. And I am not small. I am exactly the size I need to be to do the work I need to do. That is the real victory. Not the money. Not the revenge. But the discovery that I did not need Richard to be whole. I did not need his children's approval to matter. I did not need anyone's permission to be myself. I just needed to believe it. 5 years after that terrible meeting in the boardroom, I received an invitation to speak at a conference for women in transition. The topic was rebuilding after loss, and the organizer thought my story would inspire others. Almost said no. Talking about Richard and Marcus and Victoria still hurts sometimes. But then I thought about all the women I had met through the foundation. Women who needed to hear that survival was possible. That thriving was possible. So I said yes. The conference was in a hotel ballroom filled with hundreds of women of all ages. I stood at the podium looking out at them, suddenly nervous. What did I have to say that would matter? Then I saw a woman in the third row. She looked about 60. Her eyes were red like she had been crying. And her body language screamed defeat. Shoulders hunched. Head down. Like she wanted to disappear. I knew that posture. I had lived in that body once. I started talking. Not about Richard's grand plan or the money he left me or the elaborate revenge that destroyed his children. Those were just details. Plot points. Instead, I talked about what it felt like to believe I was nothing, to measure my worth by how much someone else valued me, to think that my life was over because the person who defined me was gone. And I talked about the moment I realized none of that was true, that I had always been whole. I had just forgotten. The woman in the third row looked up. Eyes met. And I saw something shift in her face. Recognition maybe. Or hope. After the speech, she waited in line to talk to me. Close, I could see she was younger than I thought. Maybe 50. But grief and fear had aged her. My husband left me last month, she said. After 25 years. He cleared out our bank accounts. He told me I was worthless. That no one would ever want me. That I should be grateful he stayed as long as he did. Her voice broke. And I believed him. Until today. She reached out and took my hand. Thank you for telling your story. Thank you for showing me that there is life after this. There is life, I promised her. So much life. You just have to claim it. She squeezed my hand once, then walked away. And I knew in that moment that everything I had been through, all the pain and loss and anger and fear, had a purpose. Not revenge. Not punishment. But this. Connection. Oh. The reminder that we are all stronger than we think we are. That evening I called Robert. How would you feel about being on the board of a national foundation? I am thinking about expanding. Expanding how? More cities. More programs. More women. The need is so much bigger than what we are doing in Sacramento. Maggie, that is amazing. What changed? I realized today that Richard's last gift to me was not the money. It was the opportunity to do something that matters. And I have been thinking too small. He laughed. You are going to change the world, aren't you? I'm going to try. And I did. Over the next 10 years, the Second Chances Foundation opened offices in 15 cities. We helped thousands of women rebuild their lives after loss. We provided legal aid, financial counseling, job training, housing assistance, and most importantly, community. But we also did something else. We started tracking patterns. Why so many women ended up in these situations. How the legal system failed them. How financial institutions discriminated against them. How society devalued their contributions. And we started pushing for change. Lobbying for better laws. Creating public awareness campaigns. Building partnerships with other organizations. The foundation became bigger than me. Bigger than my story. And that was exactly what I wanted. Published 3 more novels. Each one sold better than the last. I never became a famous author, but I built a small, loyal readership of women who saw themselves in my characters. Women who were rebuilding. Women who were surviving. Women who were thriving. I traveled. Paris. Rome. Tokyo. All the places Richard and I had talked about visiting someday but never did. I walked through museums and gardens and ancient streets, collecting experiences and storing them away for future stories. I made new friends. Real friends. Not people connected to Richard or his business. Not people who wanted something from me. Just genuine people who liked me for who I was. And somewhere along the way I stopped being angry. At Richard for dying and leaving me to face his mess. At Marcus and Victoria for their greed and cruelty. At myself for not seeing the truth sooner. The anger just faded, replaced by something quieter. Acceptance maybe. Or wisdom. Or just exhaustion. Whatever it was, it felt like freedom. I'm 75 years old now. The foundation is run by younger, smarter people who have taken my initial vision and made it better than I ever could have. I serve on the board, but mostly I stay out of the way and let them do their work. I still write. Not novels anymore. My hands shake too much for long projects. But short pieces. Memories. Things that matter to me. Robert died 2 years ago. Cancer like Richard. Like so many people I have loved. I held his hand at the end. Grateful for his friendship and his steady presence through all the chaos of my transformation. Marcus reached out last year. A short email asking if we could talk. I did not respond for a week, unsure if I was ready. But eventually, curiosity got the better of me. We met at a small coffee shop near my house. He looked old. Older than he should at 65. Gray hair, deep lines around his eyes, the posture of a man who had been beaten down by life. "Thank you for meeting me," he said. "I was not sure you would." "I almost did not." He smiled sadly. "I would not have blamed you." We sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Then he said, "I have been in therapy for 5 years now. Working through everything I did. Everything I became. And my therapist suggested I try to make amends to the people I hurt most." "You want me to forgive you?" "Oh, I do not deserve that. I just wanted to tell you that I understand now what I did to you. How we tried to erase you. Discard you. And I wanted you to know that I am sorry. Genuinely, deeply sorry." I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or hidden agenda. But all I saw was regret. Real bone-deep regret. "What happened to you?" he asked. "After everything fell apart. Rock bottom. Bankruptcy. Depression. A suicide attempt that landed me in the hospital." He paused. "That is when I finally started dealing with my issues. The gambling. The entitlement. The idea that the world owed me something. And now I am a paralegal. I work hard. I live simply. I try to be a decent person. It is not the life I imagined, but it is honest. And that matters." I thought about the woman I had been 15 years ago. The one who signed away her inheritance in Gerald's office. The one who let Marcus and Victoria think they had won so she could watch them fall. Would that woman forgive him? Oh, she was too angry. Too hurt. Too raw. But I was not that woman anymore. "I accept your apology," I said. "Not because you deserve forgiveness. But because holding on to anger for this long is exhausting and I am tired." Something in Marcus's face crumpled. "Thank you. You have no idea what that means." "How is Victoria?" "Better than me. She got remarried a few years ago to a good man. They run a small bed and breakfast in Oregon. She sent you a card once, did you get it?" I had received a Christmas card 3 years ago with a simple message. "Thinking of you and hoping you are well." I had thrown it away without responding. "Got it. She understands if you never want to talk to her. But she wanted you to know she thinks about you. About what you did with the foundation. She is proud of you. Proud of me. That should have felt like too little, too late. But instead it just felt sad. All those years of conflict and pain, and for what? So we could end up here in a coffee shop, talking about regrets and missed opportunities. Tell her I am glad she is happy. And that I hope she has found peace. I will." We finished our coffee and stood to leave. At the door, Marcus hesitated. "Can I ask you something? Was it worth it? What Dad did? The trap he set for us? The way he destroyed us to protect you?" I thought about that for a long time. Was it worth it? The years of watching Marcus and Victoria suffer. The satisfaction of their fall. The vindication of being right. "Your father loved you both," I finally said. "He was devastated by what you did. The trap was not about destroying you. It was about teaching you a lesson you would not have learned any other way. Did we learn it? Did you?" Marcus considered that. "I think we did. Just took us a very long time. Then maybe it was worth it." We parted ways outside the coffee shop. I watched him walk away. This man who had once been so arrogant and cruel, now just another person trying to survive and make amends for past mistakes. I went home to my small house and my quiet life and my stacks of half-written stories. And I realized that this right here was Richard's real gift to me. Not the money, though that had been useful. Not the revenge, though that had been satisfying. But the space to become someone new. Someone who could sit across from her former enemy and feel nothing but tired compassion. Someone who had learned that the best revenge is not destroying your enemies. It is living so well that revenge becomes irrelevant. I am 75 years old. Have loved and lost. I have been betrayed and vindicated. I have fallen apart and put myself back together. I have been so angry I could not see straight, and so at peace I felt like I was floating. And through it all, I have learned one fundamental truth. You cannot spend your life waiting for other people to value you. You cannot measure your worth by how much they left you in a will, or how they treated you in a boardroom, or whether they remembered to call on your birthday. You have to decide your own value. Claim it. Fight for it. Defend it against anyone who tries to take it away. That is what Richard's elaborate trap taught me. Not through his plan but despite it. He tried to control things from beyond the grave, tried to orchestrate my revenge for me. But in the end I had to figure out my own path, my own purpose, my own worth. And when I did, everything else fell into place. The foundation is my legacy now. Not the money, not the story of how I defeated my enemies, but the thousands of women who found their second chances because I found mine. That is worth more than any inheritance, more than any revenge, more than anything Marcus and Victoria could have taken from me or Richard could have left me. 'Cause it is mine, built by me, for reasons that matter to me. And no one can ever take that away. I stand at my kitchen window now, looking out at the garden I have spent years cultivating. Roses and lavender and herbs that smell like home. It is a small garden, nothing like the elaborate grounds of the house I used to live in. But it is mine. In the distance I can hear children playing. Life continuing. The world spinning forward. And I am here, still standing, still growing, still learning, still becoming. That is the real story. Not the boardroom humiliation or the clever will or the satisfaction of watching greedy heirs get what they deserved. But this. A woman who discovered that being discarded was the best thing that ever happened to her. Because it forced her to stand on her own. To define herself by her own standards. To build a life that mattered. I would never wish the pain I went through on anyone. The grief. The betrayal. The fear. The anger. But I would not trade what I learned for anything. Would not give back this life I have built for the security of the one I lost. 'Cause this life is real. And it is mine. And it is enough. More than enough. It is everything. So yes, Marcus and Victoria humiliated me in that boardroom 15 years ago. They tried to make me small. Tried to erase me. Tried to reduce 18 years of my life to $50,000 in 30 days. But they failed. Because you cannot humiliate someone who knows her own worth. You cannot erase someone who has found her own voice. You cannot reduce someone who has discovered that she was always enough, all along. They thought they were winning that day in the boardroom. Taking everything that mattered. Claiming their inheritance. Discarding the woman who did not really count. Instead they gave me the greatest gift I could have received. Freedom. From their judgment. From their expectations. From the need to make them love me or accept me or see my value. They set me free. And I flew. That is my story. Not a story of revenge, though there was revenge. Not a story of triumph, though there was triumph. But a story of transformation. Of a woman who lost everything and discovered she had never needed it in the first place. Because everything she needed was already inside her. Waiting to be discovered. Waiting to be claimed. Waiting to be lived. And now, at 75, with my small house and my quiet life and my work that matters, I can finally say what I could not say 15 years ago in that cold boardroom. Thank you. Thank you for showing me who you really were. Thank you for taking away the life I thought I needed. Thank you for forcing me to become the person I was always meant to be. I would not be here without you. None of this would exist without your cruelty. Oh, thank you. And goodbye. 'Cause this is where our story ends. Not with anger or hatred or the desire for more revenge. But with gratitude and closure and the peaceful knowledge that I won. Not by destroying you. But by building something better than anything you could have imagined. I won by living. Really living. On my own terms. By my own rules. For my own reasons. And that is worth more than any inheritance. More than any property. More than any amount of money or power or status. It is worth everything. So I leave you now with this final truth. The truth I wish I had known that day in the boardroom when I felt so small and scared and powerless. You are enough. Right now. As you are. Without anyone else's approval or validation or acknowledgement. You have always been enough. You will always be enough. You just have to believe it. And once you do, once you really truly believe it, nothing can stop you. Not greedy heirs. Not cruel stepchildren. Not legal documents or financial manipulation or people who try to make you feel small. Nothing. 'Cause you are not small. You are vast. You contain multitudes. You are capable of more than you can imagine. You are enough. Remember that. When the world tries to tell you otherwise. When people try to reduce you to a number or a role or a convenient fiction. When you feel lost and scared and alone. Remember. You are enough. You have always been enough. And you will always be enough. That is the lesson. The real lesson. Not from Richard's elaborate trap or Marcus and Victoria's downfall. But from the journey itself. The painful, beautiful, transformative journey from who I was to who I am. And I am enough. Finally. Completely. Gloriously enough. That is my story. The story of how I gave the greedy heirs exactly what they wanted. And in doing so, gained everything I needed. Not in spite of them. But because of them. They were the catalyst. The unwitting teachers. The agents of my transformation. So thank you, Marcus and Victoria. For everything. For the pain and the lessons and the freedom you never meant to give me. I hope you have found your peace. I hope you have learned your lessons. I hope you are living lives that matter. But mostly I hope you understand what you taught me. That the best revenge is not destruction. It is transformation. It is taking the worst thing that ever happened to you and turning it into the best thing. That is what I did. That is who I am. And that is my gift to anyone who hears this story. You can transform too. You can take the pain and turn it into purpose. You can take the loss and turn it into gain. You can take the ending and turn it into a beginning. All you have to do is believe. In yourself. In your worth. In your ability to build something better than what you lost. I did it. At 60. With no career and no money and no plan. If I can do it, anyone can. So do it. Transform. Rebuild. Become. The world is waiting for you. The life you were meant to live is waiting for you. All you have to do is claim it. And trust me when I tell you. It is worth it. Every painful step. Every moment of doubt. Every fear you have to push through. It is all worth it. Because on the other side is freedom. Real freedom. The kind that comes from knowing who you are and what you are worth and what you are capable of. And nothing in this world is more valuable than that. So go. Live. Transform. Become. And know that somewhere, a 75-year-old woman who once sat in a boardroom feeling small and powerless is cheering for you. Believing in you. Knowing that you can do it because she did. You are enough. Now go prove it to yourself.